Elvis Presley's natural hair color was sandy blonde, not the iconic black he dyed it. He never performed a single concert outside of North America, despite being a global superstar. His twin brother, Jesse Garon, was stillborn 35 minutes before Elvis arrived. The Aloha from Hawaii concert in 1973 was broadcast via satellite to over 40 countries and reached an estimated 1 to 1.5 billion viewers, more people than watched the moon landing, according to some estimates. He bought Graceland Mansion when he was just 22 years old. Number 10, the myth, the legend, he's still everywhere. Even decades after his death on August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley remains a tangible presence in global culture. It's more than just remembering a singer. It's about an idea, an image, a myth that refuses to fade. Think about it. How many other figures from the 1950s are still instantly recognizable just by their first name? The persistence of the Elvis sighting phenomenon, while often played for laughs, speaks volumes about his enduring grip on the public imagination. Tabloids ran stories for years, feeding a strange hope or fascination that he might have faked his death to escape the pressures of fame. These sightings popped up everywhere. A gas station in Michigan, a supermarket in Sweden, working undercover for the government. While definitively debunked, the sheer volume and longevity of these claims highlight the almost mythical status he achieved. Then there are the Elvis Impersonators, or Elvis Trouba artists, a task many prefer to be called. It's a global industry. From Las Vegas wedding chapels and casinos, to dedicated contests like the Ultimate Elvis Trues Artist Contest held in Memphis during Elvis Week, thousands of people dedicate themselves to embodying his look, sound, and moves. They study his mannerisms, his vocal inflections, the precise way he tilted his head or curled his lip. This isn't just Vanderbim. It's a living, breathing performance, art keeping his stage persona alive night after night, city after city. Some artists focus on the young, rebellious 50s Elvis, others the 68 comeback special leather-clad Elvis, and many specialize in the 70s jumpsuit era. The existence of this vast network curses how deeply his performance style resonated and how much people still want to experience something like it. Beyond impersonators, his image is ubiquitous in advertising and merchandising. His likeness, his name, even just his silhouette are instantly recognizable and frequently licensed. You'll find Elvis on coffee mugs, t-shirts, posters, slot machines, collectible plates, even used to sell cars or fast food. Companies leverage his association with cool, rebellion, or American nostalgia. Graceland itself, his Memphis home, manages his image and licenses it, ensuring his presence continues in the commercial sphere. This commercialization keeps his face and name in the public eye, reinforcing his legendary status even for generations born long after his death. Pop culture constantly references him. Cool-meets, TV shows, songs, books, name a medium, and you'll likely find an Elvis reference. Sometimes it's a direct homage, like Nicolas Cage's Elvis-obsessed character in Wild at Heart, or the entire plot of 3,000 Miles to Graceland. Other times it's more subtle, a character mimicking his dance moves, a snatch of his music playing, or simply mentioning his name as shorthand for rock and roll or superstardom. Think of the Flying Elvises in Honeymoon in Vegas. Think of mentions and songs by artists ranging from Bruce Springsteen to Lana Del Rey. He functions as a cultural touchstone, a shared reference point understood across different demographics and generations. Even the controversies surrounding him contribute to the enduring legend. Debates about cultural appropriation, the extent to which his success was built on black musical forms without always giving credit, continue to be discussed and analyzed. His later years, marked by declining health, weight gain, and reliance on prescription drugs, had a tragic dimension to the myth, the story of a king who fell from grace. The circumstances of his death itself remain a subject of intense fascination and speculation for some. These complexities, the highs and the lows, the triumphs and the tragedies, make the Elvis story more compelling and ensure it continues to be told and retold. He isn't just a static figure from the past. He's a dynamic legend whose meaning and relevance are constantly being re-evaluated. Number 9. Your fave probably loves Elvis. Seriously, the list of musicians who point to Elvis Presley as a major influence is staggering, crossing genres, generations, and continents. It's hard to overstate how profoundly his arrival reshaped the musical landscape and inspired countless others to pick up a guitar, step up to a microphone, or just dare to be different. Many of rock and roll's foundational figures acknowledged his impact directly. John Lennon famously said, "Before Elvis, there was nothing." This wasn't literally true, of course, but it captured the seismic shift Elvis represented for young musicians like Lennon. The Beatles, as a group, covered Elvis songs in their early days and clearly absorbed his energy and attitude. Paul McCartney has spoken about hearing Heartbreak Hotel as a life-changing moment. Keith Richards, of the Rolling Stones, has also cited Elvis's early Sun Records recordings as a key inspiration. Bruce Springsteen is another giant who frequently talks about Elvis's influence. He saw Elvis on The Ed Sullivan Show as a child, an event he described as like he came and whispered some dream in everybody's ear, and somehow we all dreamed it. Springsteen's performance style, his connection with the audience, and even some of his lyrical themes echo the working-class roots and aspirations sometimes found in Elvis's story. Songs like Born to Run carry a spirit of youthful escape that Elvis helped pioneer. He even wrote a song called Fire, which he initially hoped Elvis would record. It later became a hit for the Pointer Sisters. It wasn't just rock stars. Country musicians also felt his impact. While some in the traditional country establishment were initially wary of his rock and roll sound, many younger artists saw the potential. Figures like Dolly Parton have expressed admiration for Elvis, and his ability to blend country sensitivity with other genres paved the way for future crossover artists. His versions of country songs often brought them to entirely new audiences. Even artists in seemingly disparate genres acknowledge his importance. Elton John has called Elvis the King and spoken about his incredible stage presence. Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin was a huge Elvis fan, and you can hear echoes of Elvis's vocal power and phrasing in Plant's own singing, particularly on ballads. Bono from U2 has repeatedly referenced Elvis, visiting Graceland & Son studio and acknowledging the spiritual dimension Elvis brought to rock music through his gospel recordings. The influence extends beyond music. Artists known for their distinctive style and persona, like David Bowie or Freddie Mercury, owe a debt to Elvis for demonstrating how a performer could use image, fashion, and stagecraft to create a larger-than-life character. Elvis proved that a pop star could be more than just a singer. They could be an icon, a phenomenon. Contemporary artists continue to cite him. Bruno Mars, known for his showmanship and genre-blending music, clearly draws from the Elvis playbook in his performances and style. Harry Styles, with his flamboyant stage outfits and rock star charisma, echoes elements of Elvis's appeal. Country stars like Chris Stapleton embody some of the raw vocal power and bluesy undertones present in Elvis's work. The sheer number and diversity of artists who look back to Elvis demonstrate that his impact wasn't confined to the 1950s or 60s. He set a template for superstardom, performance energy, and musical fusion that continues to resonate and inspire musicians today. Whether it's his voice, his moves, his style, or just his attitude, elements of Elvis are embedded in the DNA of modern popular music. Number 8. Graceland is basically a royal palace for rock fans. Graceland, the mansion Elvis bought in Memphis, Tennessee in 1957 for $102,500, isn't just a house. It's a shrine, a museum, and one of the most visited private homes in the United States, second only to the White House. It stands as a physical monument to his fame, his life, and his enduring legacy. Each year, hundreds of thousands of fans from all over the world make the pilgrimage to walk through its rooms, pay their respects at his grave, and immerse themselves in the world of the king. The mansion itself offers a unique time capsule glimpse into Elvis's personal taste and lifestyle, particularly from the mid-1970s, as it's largely preserved as it was when he lived there. Visitors tour the downstairs rooms, the living room with its white sofas and peacock-themed stained glass, his parents' bedroom, the formal dining room, and the kitchen, which seems surprisingly ordinary compared to the rest of the house. Perhaps the most famous room is the Jungle Room, with its green shag carpets on the floor and ceiling, indoor waterfall, Polynesian-inspired furniture, and kitschy decor. It was a den where Elvis relaxed with friends and family, and it was even converted into a temporary recording studio where he laid down tracks for his last 2 studio albums. Seeing these rooms allows fans to feel a personal connection, to imagine Elvis living, working, and relaxing within those walls. Beyond the main house, the Graceland complex has expanded significantly over the years. Across the street is Elvis Presley's Memphis, a massive entertainment and exhibit complex. Here, visitors can explore museums dedicated to different aspects of his life and career. There's the Presley Motors Automobile Museum, touting his impressive collection of cars, including the famous 1955 pink Cadillac motorcycles and even a tractor. Another museum, Elvis, the Entertainer Career Museum, chronicles his musical journey with stage outfits, jumpsuits galore, gold and platinum records, movie memorabilia, and personal artifacts. There are exhibits dedicated to his time in the Army, his family life, and his impact on popular culture. Visitors can even tour his christened private airplanes, the Lisa Marie, named after his daughter, and the smaller Hound Dog II. The meditation garden, located just outside the mansion, is the final resting place for Elvis, his parents Gladys and Vernon, and his grandmother, Minnie Mae. His twin brother, Jesse Garon, is also memorialized there, and more recently, his daughter Lisa Marie and grandson Benjamin Kiu were also buried there. This area is a place of quiet reflection for fans. Many leave flowers, notes, or small tokens. During Elvis Week, the annual celebration of his life held in Memphis around the anniversary of his death, tens of thousands gather for events like the Candlelight Vigil, where fans walk silently up the driveway to the meditation garden, candles in hand, in a moving tribute. Graceland functions as more than just a tourist attraction. It's the epicenter of the Elvis Phantom. It's a place where fans can gather, share their memories, and celebrate his legacy together. It provides a tangible link to the man behind the myth, allowing visitors to step into his world for a few hours. The continued popularity of Graceland, decades after Elvis's death, demonstrates the depth and endurance of his fan base and the fascination he still holds. It solidifies his status, not just as a singer, but as an American icon, whose home has become a destination of historical and cultural significance, a true palace for the king of rock and roll and his devoted followers. Number 7. His style. Still, iconic decades later. Elvis Presley wasn't just a musical trailblazer. He was a style icon whose fashion choices were as influential and boundary-pushing as his songs. From his rebellious beginnings to his flamboyant Vegas years, his look constantly evolved, but it always commanded attention and set trends. Decades later, elements of his style continue to echo in fashion: runways, celebrity, wardrobes, and everyday street style. In the 1950s, Elvis embodied a new kind of youthful cool that challenged the conservative norms of the era. He often favored bold colors, particularly pink and black combinations, which were unconventional for men at the time. Think of the pegged pants, the loose-fitting jackets, the two-tone shoes, and the open-necked shirts, sometimes with popped collars. This look, often sourced from Lansky Bros, clothiers on Beale Street in Memphis, a store that catered primarily to black musicians, fused dandyish flair with working-class rebellion. It was flashy, confident, and undeniably different. And then there was the hair. The meticulously slicked back pompadour with the signature sideburns. This wasn't just a hairstyle, it was a statement. It required effort, product, pomade, and attitude. It became instantly recognizable and widely imitated by teenagers eager to emulate his rebellious spirit. After his stint in the army, Elvis's style transitioned. His movie roles often dictated his look, sometimes more conventional, sometimes reflecting trends of the 60s. But the real style rebirth came with the '68 comeback special. Clad head to toe in black leather, looking lean and dangerous, Elvis reclaimed his throne. This iconic outfit, designed by Bill Belew, who would become his primary costume designer, projected raw energy and sex appeal. The tight fit, the high collar, it was a powerful visual statement that perfectly matched the intensity of his performance. The black leather look became instantly legendary and remains one of his most enduring images. Then came the 1970s and the era of the jumpsuit. What started as relatively simple karate-inspired stagewear evolved into increasingly elaborate, custom-designed creations. Again, Bill Belew was the mastermind. These jumpsuits, often white, but also appearing in blue, black, and other colors, became synonymous with Elvis's Las Vegas residencies and tours. They featured high collars, flared legs, plunging necklines, and were adorned with intricate embroidery studs, rhinestones, and semi-precious stones. Each suit had a name like the American Eagle, worn for the Aloha from Hawaii Special, the Peacock, the Sundeal, or the Dragon. Paired with wide ornate belts and often capes, these outfits transformed Elvis into a larger-than-life, almost superhero-like figure on stage. While sometimes criticized as excessive, the jumpsuits were undeniably spectacular, and perfectly suited the scale of his performances in large arenas and Vegas showrooms. They cemented his image as the ultimate showman, the king in his royal attire. Beyond the clothes, Elvis's accessories were also key elements of his style. The TCB, taking care of business, necklaces and rings, the flashy jewelry, the sunglasses. Everything contributed to the overall persona. The enduring legacy of his style is clear. The pompadour and sideburns remain shorthand for 1950s cool. Rockabilly fashion, with its cuffed jeans, leather jackets, and bold shirts, owes a massive debt to early Elvis. The black leather look continues to inspire rock stars and fashion designers. Even the flamboyant jumpsuits, while perhaps not directly copied for everyday wear, represent a certain kind of maximalist performance aesthetic. Designers occasionally reference their silhouettes, embellishments, or sheer audacity. Celebrities like Harry Styles or Bruno Mars, with their penchant for statement, stage wear, are walking in the sequined footsteps of the king. Elvis demonstrated that fashion could be an integral part of a performer's identity and impact, and his iconic looks ensure he remains a style reference point decades after his final bow. Number 6. He conquered every form of media. Elvis Presley wasn't just a recording artist. He was arguably the first true multimedia superstar of the modern era. At a time when the lines between different entertainment platforms were more distinct, Elvis dominated records, television, and film simultaneously, reaching an unprecedented level of fame and cultural penetration. His success across these platforms created a template for future global stars. It all started with the records. From his early Sun record singles like That's All Right and Mystery Train, to his RCA blockbusters like Heartbreak Hotel, Don't Be Cruel, Hound Dog, and Jailhouse Rock, Elvis's recordings consistently topped the charts. He sold records in staggering quantities, achieving gold and platinum status numerous times over. Estimates of his total worldwide record sales vary, but figures often place him over 500 million, or even claim the billion mark, though the latter is harder to verify definitively, making him one of the best-selling solo artists in history. His records weren't just popular. They were cultural events, eagerly anticipated and consumed by millions. He proved the commercial power of rock and roll and the youth market. Television was crucial in catapulting Elvis from a regional sensation to a national phenomenon. His early appearances on shows like the Dorsey Brothers Stage Show, the Milton Berle Show, and especially the Ed Sullivan Show in 1956 and 1957 were watershed moments. His electrifying performances, complete with swiveling hips and raw energy, scandalized conservative viewers but captivated teenagers. The famous Ed Sullivan appearance, where the cameras were instructed to film him only from the waist up, became legendary, paradoxically drawing even more attention to his controversial moves. These TV appearances delivered massive ratings, demonstrating the medium's power to create instant stars and shared cultural moments. Years later, his 1968 television special, often called the '68 Comeback Special, revitalized his career, touting a mature, powerful performer and reminding audiences of his incredible talent. And in 1973, the Aloha from Hawaii via satellite concert was broadcast live to numerous countries, a pioneering event in global satellite broadcasting that reached an enormous international audience, cementing his status as a worldwide icon. Hollywood quickly came calling. Starting with Love Me Tender in 1956, Elvis starred in 31 feature films as an actor over the next 13 years, plus 2 concert documentaries. While the quality of the films varied, many followed a formulaic plot involving singing, fighting, and romance in an exotic locale. They were consistently popular at the box office, especially in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Kubi's like Jailhouse Rock, 1957, King Creole, 1958, often cited as his best acting performance, Blue Hawaii, 1961, and Viva Las Vegas, 1964, were major Camegas successes. The accompanying soundtrack albums were also huge sellers, often generating hit singles. Although Elvis himself sometimes expressed frustration with the lightweight material he was given, his films kept him in the public eye, particularly during the period when he wasn't touring, and introduced his music and persona to an even wider audience. They proved that a music star could successfully cross over into movies, establishing a path many others would follow. Elvis's ability to dominate these 3 key media platforms, records, television, and film, simultaneously was unprecedented for a solo artist in the 1950s and 60s. Each platform fed the success of the others. TV appearances sold records and promoted movies. Movies featured hit songs that drove record sales. Records kept his voice on the radio between film releases and TV specials. This multi-beta saturation created an inescapable presence, making Elvis Presley not just a singer or an actor, but a cultural force who defined superstardom for the 20th century. Number 5. That voice could do anything. While Elvis Presley's image, moves, and cultural impact are often highlighted, the foundation of his enduring legacy rests firmly on his extraordinary voice. It was a remarkable instrument, versatile, emotive, and instantly recognizable. He possessed a wide vocal range, roughly 2 1/3 octaves, primarily as a high baritone, and an innate ability to inhabit different musical styles with conviction and authenticity. He wasn't just a rock and roll shouter. He was a master interpreter capable of conveying tenderness, passion, rebellion, and deep spirituality. One of the most striking aspects of Elvis's voice was its versatility. He could bat and shift between genres, often within the same song. He delivered raw, energetic rockabilly on tracks like Blue Suede Shoes and Hound Dog, injecting them with a wild, almost dangerous energy. He could croon romantic ballads like Can't Help Falling in Love or Love Me Tender, with a sincerity and vulnerability that melted hearts. His voice possessed a natural warmth and richness that made these slower songs incredibly effective. His connection to gospel music ran deep, stemming from his childhood experiences attending church services in Tupelo. This influence was evident not just in his dedicated gospel recordings, for which he won all 3 of his competitive Grammy Awards, but also in the soulful inflections he brought to his secular music. Songs like How Great Thou Art, Peace in the Valley, and Crying in the Chapel showcase his powerful delivery and genuine feeling for spiritual music. He could soar with praise or convey quiet reverence. Many critics and musicians consider his gospel work to be among his finest achievements. Elvis was equally adept at country music. Growing up in the South, country sounds were part of his musical DNA. He could sing a country ballad like Are You Lonesome Tonight?, complete with its famous spoken word interlude, with heartfelt emotion, or tackle more traditional country fare. His early hit, Blue Moon of Kentucky, a rocked-up version of Bill Monroe's bluegrass standard, demonstrated his ability to bridge the gap between country and the emerging rock and roll sound. His affinity for blues and R&B was also crucial. From his very first recording, That's All Right, a cover of Arthur Big Boy Crudup's blues song, Elvis demonstrated a natural feel for blues, phrasing, and rhythm. He tackled blues standards like Reconsider Baby with grit and passion. This ability to sing black musical styles convincingly was key to his unique sound and, simultaneously, a source of controversy regarding cultural appropriation. Regardless of the debate, his vocal interpretations undeniably brought these styles to a wider audience. Beyond genre hopping, Elvis possessed remarkable vocal control and expressiveness. He could utilize vibrato effectively, employ subtle shifts in dynamics from a whisper to a roar, and inject hiccups, growls, and swoops that added personality and excitement to his performances. His diction was generally clear, ensuring the lyrics resonated. Yet he could also slur or bend notes in a way that conveyed raw emotion. Whether live on stage or in the recording studio, his voice commanded attention. Even in his later years, when his physical health was declining, his voice often retained its power and emotive quality, particularly on big ballads like Unchained Melody or My Way. The sheer breadth of material he recorded and the conviction he brought to each genre highlight the exceptional nature of his vocal talent. It was a voice that could embody rebellion, romance, spirituality, and heartache, connecting with listeners on a deeply emotional level, and it remains the cornerstone of his artistry. Number 4. Those Moves. He redefined live performance. Before Elvis Presley exploded onto the national scene, mainstream popular singers generally stood relatively still behind a microphone. Performers might sway or gesture, but the kind of raw, uninhibited physical energy Elvis unleashed was something entirely new and shocking for many audiences in the mid-1950s. His electrifying stage presence and signature moves didn't just complement his music. They were an integral part of the performance, redefining what it meant to be a frontman and captivating a generation. It started with the legs. The swiveling hips, the shaking legs, the knees buckling and straightening. These movements, seemingly involuntary reactions to the driving rhythm of the music, sent teenagers into hysterias and adults into fits of moral outrage. Critics derided him as Elvis the Pelvis and accused him of vulgarity. Television directors famously tried to censor him by filming him only from the waist up on The Ed Sullivan Show. But the controversy only fueled his fame. These weren't choreographed dance steps in the traditional sense. They were raw, instinctive expressions of the music's energy. He seemed possessed by the rhythm, and that energy was infectious. His upper body was just as expressive. He'd lean into the microphone stand, grip it intensely, gesture dramatically with his arms, point at the audience, or strike a pose with a confident smirk or a vulnerable glance. The famous lip curl, part sneer, part smile, became one of his visual trademarks, conveying a mix of rebellion and charisma. He commanded the stage, moving freely, interacting with his band, especially guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black in the early days, and connecting directly with the audience. This physicality was revolutionary for a white male performer in the mainstream at that time. While black R&B artists often incorporated energetic movements into their performances, it wasn't common in white pop music. Elvis absorbed these influences, combined them with his own nervous energy and natural showmanship, and presented it to a massive televised audience. He made it acceptable, even desirable, for a male singer to be overtly physical and sexually suggestive on stage. He broke down the formal barriers between performer and audience, creating a sense of excitement and immediacy that was palpable even through a television screen. His performance style evolved over his career. The raw, almost frantic energy of the 1950s gave way to a more controlled but equally commanding presence in the '68 comeback special, where the black leather outfit emphasized his movements and confidence. In the 1970s, during his Las Vegas residency years and arena tours, his stagecraft became more elaborate. The jumpsuits, capes, and karate-inspired moves added a new dimension of theatricality. He'd strike dramatic poses, high kick, crouch low, and famously hand out scarves, kissed by him to adoring fans near the stage. While the specific moves changed, the core element remained. Elvis was always the focal point, a magnetic presence who knew how to work a crowd. The impact of Elvis's performance style on subsequent generations of musicians is undeniable. He set the standard for the rock and roll frontman. Artists like Mick Jagger, Jim Morrison, Iggy Pop, Bruce Springsteen, Freddie Mercury, Michael Jackson, and countless others owe a debt to Elvis for demonstrating the power of physicality and charisma in live performance. He showed that a concert could be more than just a musical recital. It could be a visual spectacle, an electrifying experience driven by the performer's energy and connection with the audience. Those controversial moves didn't just sell records. They changed the rules of stage performance forever. Number 3. He basically invented teenage rebellion. Well, kinda. Okay, maybe he didn't invent teenage rebellion. That's probably been around since the first teenager argued with their parents over chariot privileges. But Elvis Presley became the undisputed global icon and catalyst for a specific kind of youth culture explosion in the 1950s. He arrived at a time of post-war prosperity and conformity, and his music, look, and attitude offered a thrilling alternative, giving voice and validation to adolescent restlessness and desire for identity. Before Elvis, popular music largely catered to adult tastes. Crooners like Frank Sinatra and Perry Como dominated the charts with smooth, orchestrated sounds. Then came Elvis, bursting out of radios and onto television screens with a sound that was loud, energetic, and infused with the rhythms of black R&B and the twang of country music that wasn't considered respectable by many adults. Songs like Hound Dog, Jailhouse Rock, and Hard-Headed Woman were rebellious anthems, full of attitude and barely contained energy. This music spoke directly to teenagers, articulating feelings of frustration, desire, and the urge to break free from societal constraints. His appearance was just as challenging to the status quo. The ducktail hairstyle with long sideburns, the flashy clothes, remember pink and black, the curled lip, the perceived arrogance, it all screamed nonconformity. While parents saw danger and disrespect, teenagers saw cool. Emulating Elvis's style became a way for young people to signal their allegiance to this new youth culture and differentiate themselves from the older generation. He gave them a look to rally around, a visual badge of rebellion. And then there were the infamous performances. The hip swivels, the leg shakes, the suggestive movements, these were condemned from pulpits and by editorialists as immoral and a threat to decency. Efforts to censor him, like the Waist Up, filming on Ed Sullivan, only highlighted his transgressive appeal. For teenagers, chafing under the conservative social mores of the 1950s, Elvis's open display of sensuality and energy was liberating. He represented a freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom from the stiff expectations of adult society. The hysterical reactions he elicited from young fans, particularly girls, were unprecedented and deeply unsettling to many adults, further cementing his status as a figurehead of youth defiance. Elvis became a symbol of the generation gap. Parents and authorities worried about his influence, fearing rock and roll would lead to juvenile delinquency. Teenagers, meanwhile, embraced him precisely because he made adults uncomfortable. Buying his records, imitating his style, and screaming at his concerts were acts of asserting their own identity and cultural preferences, separate from their parents. He wasn't just a singer. He was their singer, representing their world. While figures like James Dean, in Rebel Without a Cause, also tapped into adolescent angst around the same time, Elvis brought that rebellious spirit directly into millions of homes through the inescapable medium of music and television. He wasn't playing a character. He was the phenomenon. He demonstrated that youth culture could be a powerful commercial and social force. While he himself was often polite and respectful in interviews, yes sir, no ma'am, his public persona resonated with a generation eager to push boundaries. He didn't hand teenagers a manifesto for rebellion, but he provided the soundtrack, the look, and the attitude that helped define it for the mid-20th century and beyond. He made being young and different seem exciting and powerful. Number 2. He became the undisputed king of rock and roll. While rock and roll was bubbling up from various sources in the early 1950s, with crucial contributions from black artists like Chuck Berry, Little Richard, and Fats Domino, as well as white artists like Bill Haley, it was Elvis Presley who became the genre's first massive superstar. He didn't invent rock and roll, but he synthesized its elements, amplified its reach, and embodied its spirit in a way that earned him the enduring title, the King of Rock and Roll. Elvis's arrival on the national scene in 1956 was like a cultural earthquake. His appearances on television reached millions simultaneously, creating a shared experience that previous rock and roll artists hadn't achieved on that scale. His combination of looks, charisma, controversial dance moves, and a voice that blended country, blues, and gospel was electrifying and unprecedented for a white artist in the mainstream. He was the right person at the right time, perfectly positioned to bring this exciting new sound, previously relegated mostly to black radio stations and niche markets, crashing into the consciousness of white middle-class America. His record sales were simply phenomenal. Hits like Heartbreak Hotel, Don't Be Cruel, Hound Dog, All Shook Up, and Jailhouse Rock dominated the charts, selling millions of copies and proving the immense commercial viability of rock and roll. He became RCA Records' biggest star and generated enormous profits, prompting other major labels to invest heavily in signing and promoting rock and roll artists. He essentially opened the floodgates for the genre to become the dominant force in popular music. Elvis's crossover appeal was key to his coronation. He wasn't just popular with teenagers. His ballads appealed to older listeners. His gospel recordings resonated with religious audiences, and his country roots kept him connected to that genre's fan base. His movies further broadened his audience, making him a household name even among those who didn't buy rock and roll records. This ability to transcend demographic boundaries gave him a level of fame and influence that surpassed other early rock pioneers. While artists like Chuck Berry were arguably more influential songwriters, and Little Richard perhaps even more flamboyant, Elvis became the public face of the entire movement. The King title wasn't just about sales, figures, or chart positions. It was about his cultural impact and perceived dominance. he seemed larger than life. A figure who could command hysteria with a simple hip swivel. The media frenzy surrounding him, both positive and negative, cemented his status as the central figure in the rock and roll narrative. Even after his initial explosive arrival, through his army service, his movie career, his '68 comeback, and his Vegas years, he retained a unique aura of musical royalty. When he performed, it felt like an event, the appearance of the reigning monarch. It's important to acknowledge the complexities surrounding this title, particularly the arguments about racial dynamics and cultural appropriation. Many point out correctly that Elvis achieved a level of superstardom unavailable to the black artists whose music heavily influenced him, due to the racial inequalities of the era. Sam Phillips of Sun Records famously sought a white artist who could capture the sound and feeling of black music for a wider, whiter audience. And Elvis fit that bill perfectly. While Elvis always acknowledged his debt to black musicians, his overwhelming success sometimes overshadowed their foundational contributions in the mainstream narrative. Despite these valid historical critiques, the title King of Rock and Roll stuck, and it continues to define Elvis's place in music history. It reflects the undeniable fact that, for millions of people around the world, he was rock and roll. He broke down musical and cultural barriers, set records that stood for decades, and created a persona so powerful that it remains iconic. He was the catalyst, the superstar, the figurehead who took rock and roll from the margins to the absolute center of popular culture, earning his crown in the eyes of history, however complex its origins. Number 1. He mixed music like nobody before. The absolute bedrock of Elvis Presley's musical revolution and enduring legacy was his unique and seamless blending of musical genres that were largely segregated in 1950s America. And crucially, the blues and rhythm and blues, R&B, he encountered on Beale Street, the vibrant heart of black music culture in Memphis. This potent mix became the foundation for his groundbreaking sound. When Elvis walked into Sun Records in Memphis in 1953, initially, legend says, to record a song for his mother, producer Sam Phillips eventually recognized something extraordinary. Phillips had been recording brilliant black blues and R&B artists like Howlin' Wolf, B. King, and Ike Turner, but struggled to get their music played on mainstream white radio stations due to racial barriers. Phillips was reportedly looking for a white man who had the Negro sound and the Negro feel. In Elvis, he found someone who could naturally synthesize these influences. The breakthrough came in July 1954 during a recording session with guitarist Scotty Moore and bassist Bill Black. They were struggling with a ballad when, during a break, Elvis spontaneously launched into an up-tempo version of Arthur Big Boy Crudup's blues song, "That's All Right." Moore and Black jumped in, Phillips hit record, and rock and roll history was made. The resulting track wasn't pure blues, country, or pop. It was something new. It had the structure and melody of a blues song, but performed with a lighter, almost country-inflected vocal by Elvis, and driven by a nervous, energetic rhythm. For the B-side, they took Bill Monroe's slow bluegrass waltz, Blue Moon of Kentucky, and radically sped it up, infusing it with the same rockabilly energy, complete with Elvis's signature vocal hiccups. When Memphis DJ Dewey Phillips, no relation to Sam, played "That's All Right" on his popular Red Hot and Boo radio show, the phone lines lit up. Listeners were captivated, and many couldn't tell if the singer was black or white. This ambiguity was part of the magic and the controversy. Elvis's music existed in the space between established genres and racial categories. This fusion continued throughout his early career. Songs like Mystery Train, originally by black bluesman Junior Parker, Good Rockin' Tonight, a Roy Browner and B hit, and Milk Cow Blues Boogie, a country blues standard, all received a unique Elvis treatment, blending elements of different styles into a coherent, exciting whole. He took country songs and gave them an R&B edge. He took R&B songs and made them accessible to a white country and pop audience. His voice itself embodied this fusion, capable of delivering bluesy growls, country twang, gospel fervor, and pop smoothness. This genre blending wasn't just a musical novelty, it had profound cultural implications. By mixing black and white musical traditions and bringing the result to a massive mainstream audience, Elvis helped break down sonic segregation barriers on the radio and in record stores. His success demonstrated the power and appeal of music rooted in black traditions, paving the way for greater exposure for black artists themselves, though Elvis undeniably benefited more due to his race. He created a sound that resonated deeply with young audiences, who were less concerned with rigid genre labels and more interested in the energy and emotion of the music. This musical melting pot became the blueprint for rock and roll and influenced countless artists who followed, fundamentally changing the course of popular music. Elvis didn't invent the ingredients, but he was the master chef who combined them in a way that changed the world's musical palette forever.